Hi, I'm Tanya Hervonen. I'm a registered psychologist and I am based in Darwin, Northern Territory. And as part of ATSIS PEP or suicide prevention, we've been asked to assist, or Australian Indigenous Psychologists Association have been asked to assist with developing resources to help people in need when they're looking, health professionals or people on the ground looking for assistance around the areas of suicide. Suicide's not a topic that isn't a topic that we take lightly. We're very sensitive to the area of suicide because we want to make sure that we're respecting where people may be, where people are sitting in regards to suicide. So wanting to know more about suicide, or have recently been bereaved by suicide, or are working in a community that has been impacted by someone ending their lives. So again, great respect to everyone that we do work alongside, and that we're trying to talk very sensitively about this topic today. If you're a health professional working with young people, talking with that young person's family and school to find out what's happening for that young person, and helping to develop a story for them and to find out the best ways in to help that young person with whatever they're going through. Usually for young people, as I said before, they don't actually have the language to say or the words to know or understand what's happening for them. It usually comes out in behaviours, and it's key to observe what's happening for that young person to help with with ways of working forward. Suicide for Aboriginal people can look different when compared with non-Indigenous people ending their lives to suicide. For instance, when looking at when we do lose somebody in one particular area of Australia, their connections might reach several states, and it might impact on a level of location and extent through extended family. So when we do look at suicide for a particular area, we must also consider the far-reaching impacts that suicide has had on that family. Good connections, or connections with your loved ones, with places of significance, connections, even if they're over the phone, with your loved ones, are important for us to feel well. So feeling well, if we're feeling particularly down at one time, making sure that we're connecting or reaching out. The first thing we feel like doing is closing ourselves off, but that's the last thing that we should be doing. We should be hoping to reach out. If there was one key message that I would like to share today or in these clips, one of them would be about how do we look after ourselves as health professionals, working in an area where we are working with people who may be grieving, or may be in a community where they've recently lost somebody, so in the stages of those types of grief. So if you're a health professional working in those areas, it's so important that we always look after ourselves. And I don't mean that like we're in the field because we want to assist others and help others. However, we have to balance that alongside looking after ourselves so that we're giving the best of ourselves to the people that are in need. The other parts of as a professional, as a health professional working in remote areas and in challenging circumstances, is that we have good professional supervision, mentorship, and that we're able to debrief when we can. I also feel it's a professional responsibility that if we're working in this space, that we have a personal and professional responsibility to make sure that we're as well as we can, and we're managing our own stresses. Because when we're working with people that are dealing in areas of complex grief, or recently bereaved by suicide, we have to make sure that we're managing our own stuff before we work with the people that are in need. This is a key message for Aboriginal health practitioners. When you are a Aboriginal health practitioner working in Aboriginal health, we're not exempt from everything that our Aboriginal clients may be experiencing. So we are actually also subject to racism or grief and loss within our own families or cumulative stress within our own families. This balance between making sure that we're okay but also the work and our clients are okay is important for us to do well. That is why it's important that we're looking after ourselves and we are connected with our Aboriginal working colleagues and peers so that we are actually feeling well supported to perform the work that we do. The knowledge that Aboriginal health practitioners have is gold and optimal information so that we are supporting our Aboriginal health practitioners in the work that they do is really, really, really important. So supporting our Aboriginal health practitioner peers when we're actually going through challenging times is having deep trusting relationships so that people are feeling comfortable in talking about what supports that they may need to keep themselves well. Even the most resilient people at times will need supports. So please don't see it as a weakness that you are reaching out for help. Our health professionals, carrying such tremendous positions and responsibilities need help with that load. When we talk about self-care can mean many different, we're all unique and diverse. So what might work for one person may work differently for another. So it's what keeps us well. Self-care also when people talk about self-care, it might seem like, oh, okay, we look after ourselves. Self-care can include other people. Self-care can mean catching up with family on the weekends or being around loved ones or supportive colleagues. So self-care means looking after yourself, but it can incorporate being with others. There's much research now that does point towards if we aren't in the preventative space of self-care, that it could possibly lead to compassion fatigue, burnout, and vicarious trauma. So looking after ourselves or incorporating self-care in our day every day as a preventative helps to mitigate the chance of burnout at a later stage in our professional working lives. But I think it's a continuum. Self-care is something that we should be doing every day. When you're a health professional working in really remote areas, it's even more important that you maintain good professional care and good self-care. When we are health professionals working in remote locations, it's important for us and for the community in which we work that we develop deep relationships with community members and elders and local people to make sure the work we're doing well. As a health professional, it's very, very important when we start working with the younger population around areas in suicide or self-harm that we make sure that we have youth expertise or people who have expertise in working with young people, because how we work with young people in that space in comparison to older people are vastly different. If we are able to, it's important to have separate program areas for children that are youth specific and then for older population because of the fact that the work is different. And it can be challenging for an expectation on a health professional to be across the whole lifespan. It's important for us all working in the health industry to understand that every warm interaction matters. So while we may not feel that we're doing much in an interaction, as long as we're warm, placing no judgment, not assuming, we're working from a good place, that we are doing good work in that moment in time. If someone does reach out for help, it's very, very important for us that we support that person as much as what we can or have the capacity to do so. And if we are not well placed to help that person, that we warmly transfer the care to another health professional or another service or a person that's able to assist them through this time.
Hi, my name's Tania Dalton. I'm a Wathaurong Gunditjmara woman from Victoria. I'm also the chairperson of the Australian Indigenous Psychologists Association.
Hi, I'm Kelly Ryan. I'm a descendant of the Cubby Cubby people of southeast Queensland, and I'm a psychologist. Debriefing in a family or community context is a bit what we do normally, which is getting together and talking about what just happened and really talking about how you were frightened, how you felt, so feelings about that and behaviours and where that's sitting with you, and really acknowledging how you responded to that in a safe place so that you can release all of that information and tension and anxiety and get some clarity around what just happened and an understanding that you managed to get through that event. That's really important, and that's important culturally and in a community setting and with your family, but it's also really important in a professional setting.
I think when you come in and you deal with somebody that is suicidal and you offer those supports and you do your session, it's very important for you to then debrief afterwards, because you will carry that. It is trauma for you when they come through the door and they're talking about taking their life.
So what happens to someone when you're practicing Tadiri or you're listening deeply is you're not listening to try and answer, you're not looking for a fix, you're actually listening. So you listen with the desire to hear, to learn, not to respond, not to fix, just to hear. There's a very big difference in that. So often when you're really listening to someone, deep listening, it gives them the chance to actually talk through what's really hurting them, you know, what the deep sorrow is really about.
I'd like to talk today a bit about cultural safety and what that means. Firstly, about the environment that you create for the person coming in to seek help. And it's around having some visible cues there so they know that they're culturally safe to identify as an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person in the first instance, if asked by your reception staff. So ensure that you've got a flag or flags, that you've got the Courier Mail or some books or even children's books there or magazines that they can visually see, and also posters on the wall. Cultural safety for a practitioner could mean that you need to have somebody you can talk to. You need to have somebody that you can debrief with. You need to have, if you're a non-Indigenous person, you need to have undertaken some cultural competence training and also have some cultural supports around you in the workplace that you can go and talk to confidentially. And it doesn't have to be one person, it can be several people that you share this stuff with, because different people have different strengths and different knowledges that you may need to tap into. As a practitioner, you need to know the testing that your organisation is asking you to do, and you need to know that those tests have been validated and that are normed for working with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. You can get that information from the APS on the first instance if you've got any queries. The other thing is critical for your support and for cultural safety is that you have a cultural mentor and that you seek advice from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people when required. Now, those people can be professionals or they can be elders or community members that have different knowledge bases that can assist you in providing a very good client-focused service. As a practitioner, you should avail yourself of perhaps having a mentor, which is more of an informal relationship you have with somebody you trust that's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. A professional supervision relationship is more of a professional relationship whereby you can talk about therapeutic approaches, and it is a confidential, usually your work or you are paying for this service. So it's a professional relationship. Cultural advisors, cultural supervisors are people that you go to for guidance if you have somebody that you're working with and you're unsure on which realm this falls into. I cannot emphasise enough, whether you are non-Indigenous or an Indigenous psychologist, that you should have cultural supervision. It is always good. We're a very diverse Aboriginal community and Torres Strait Islander community. So to have that support for yourself and your self-care, and it may mean that you've got more than one cultural supervisor too. And it may mean that they're different genders also, which is fine.